Ticket Machine is the official ticket broker of Spartan Nation. No matter what you need a ticket for, border to border, coast to coast, the Ticket Machine is your ticket source. So whether you need to get into the hottest concerts, the best sporting events, you want the best seats in the house, or you just want to get in the door, when you want to go to any event that requires a ticket, anywhere, border to border, coast to coast, it's always theticketmachine.com. Theticketmachine.com, 517-655-3201. Check it out today at theticketmachine.com.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Coach Izzo for warming up for me today. Appreciate that. It was an interesting weekend. I think, especially Saturday night, obviously getting the win against the top 10 team in the country. Going in the playoffs for us was good physically and probably more importantly psychologically just for us. And I thought we were average on Friday, but rebounded real well. And a lot of our games the second half have all been playoff type games, and that certainly was right down to the end. But get us ready for a tough Notre Dame series. And looking at the Big Ten, the standings for the second half, Barnesy pulled those up, and the last 12 games, if we went off the last half, we'd have home ice in the second half, and there's 3 of the teams tied at 5-5-2, and then a couple teams ahead and a couple teams right behind. So it's really tight in the Big Ten, and we anticipate that it'll be that type of series at Notre Dame. And we've had over the last 2 years some really tight, hard-fought games, and usually comes down to 1 or 2 plays, which is what happens in the playoffs. So, like I said, I think mentally and physically we're in good shape for that. We're doing a lot of things well, and watched the games yesterday of our last series against Notre Dame, and I think we're a better team than we were a month and a half ago when we played them. We continue to get better at stuff. So guys are working hard. They feel good. It's spring break. Had a nice day off yesterday and got practice in this morning, and they look sharp, and I think they're excited to head down there on Thursday.
And Notre Dame is not necessarily your favorite ideal, I guess, matchup, and just in terms of styles. What do you do against them to make it more fun for you guys, I guess?
Well, you win, regardless of how that makes everything more fun. The matchups, it's interesting in Big Ten. Everybody has their strengths, everyone has their weaknesses, and if you'd say, hey, out of the other 6 teams in Big Ten hockey, who you want to play, you know what, there's whoever you get, you're going, well, that's kind of good for us, and that's kind of bad for us. So, you know what, we were going into the weekend, and unfortunately, we were going to end up, kind of where we were, and we knew we'd be 6 or 7, but that being the case, we didn't have a lot of control over who we were playing. So we just, again, get back to focusing on ourselves and how we play, and really mentally, there's a lot of things that you have to do well. Probably the most important thing against Notre Dame, you have to play a complete game, and you can't get away from it. And if you take chances, they're a patient team, but they transition really well. And if you don't take care of business and be really consistent with the puck through the neutral zone and on your entries, it's going to be going the other way an awful lot. So that's probably one of our bigger things that we got to be good at this weekend.
Dan, when you talk about improving as a team, and you've improved in the last month and a half, I know throughout the course of the year you've looked for more balance with your lines, and I think you were happy with APAP's line on Friday, and Saturday Stevens scored a big goal. Is that line starting to give you a little bit more? Are you starting to get a little more balance?
Yeah, they've been, they've been good the second half, and really what we look, that's a bigger, heavier line, and if it can just be a field position type line, like football, where they're playing downhill and wearing the other team's defense down and consuming their checking forwards a bit, making them play in their own end, then they're a good line, and they've done that. But Brody's play has elevated the second half. Tommy Apap's play he's doing more things offensively. Brennan Sanford has quietly put together a really, really good second half, and he's starting to make some plays. So that line, I think they have an identity, and when you have a role and you kind of understand your role, you do a lot better job as an athlete, and they've done a great job for us. And then we made the other switch where we put 3 older guys together, so we have Saliba and Lambden and senior Milan on the line, and they've done a decent job for us as well. So I think the second half, or the last little while here, I think we're scoring over 3 goals a game. I think that puts us in 14th or 15th in the country over that span, which is pretty good. So you know what, we're getting a little bit more help, and Kodorenko's line continues to get a lot of attention, and they're going forward. And they haven't probably scored as much in the last 2 or 3 weeks, but the other guys have picked it up. So you've seen actually an increase instead of a drop off. So those are all real positive things. But really, come back to playoff hockey, and if you want an extended run, you have to be really good defensively, and you can't get away from that. And sometimes it's the first team to 3 that wins, and if you're going to do that, again, we have to continue to have good goaltending and defend really well and kill penalties like we have the last 5 or 6 weeks.
Danton, obviously, you talk about playoff hockey. Terrible Ted passes away. Terrible Ted on the ice, but one of the nicest men off of it. Can you talk about his legacy and contribution to hockey in the state of Michigan?
Well, he's, obviously was, part of those Red Wing teams and the production line, and I mean, he's always tied in with Gordie Howe going through that. And then I think I was a player rep back in the NHL through, the first one was a walkout, and then we had several other lockouts. So I went through a bunch of those, and Ted was in Winnipeg at the time when I was there, and we went through that. And so, we ran into him a few times. But, he's the original guy with the NHLPA, and in terms of, getting that started, and that kind of, I think, led to the end of his time in Detroit. But, he was ahead of his time with that and talking about, the rights and some of the bargaining things. So, he made an impact on the ice, obviously, but I think off the ice, a lot of things that the players are going through now, or they're benefiting from now. I'm not sure everyone realizes what he gave up at the time. So, no, he was a tremendous man and advocate for the game and ambassador. And 93, that's a pretty good run. I'll make that deal right now.
You know him pretty well?
Not really. Like I said, I ran into him there a few times, and while we were going through that, and it was kind of funny. Just ran into him in a coffee shop the one time. So there's a few of us there, and we talked about it. So just a few times we spoke with him.
With the way the Big Ten has been this year with all the parity, what are your thoughts about the way the Big Ten has translated to the Pairwise Rankings and how that has changed the landscape? As if the season ended right now, the Big Ten might only get 1 team in.
Yeah, I think, it's not a lot different than last year. I think what happened last year is that, Notre Dame, got up so high in Ohio State, so we had really 2 anchors at the top. We had 21 points in the Big Ten last year. We had 30. So really what we did was, Notre Dame kind of came back to the pack and everything compacted, so you didn't get as many quality wins. And I think our non-conference record wasn't quite as good. But I think overall, it's not much different. But you add all that stuff into the computer in those non-conference games, and we just didn't have quite as much success. So you get a bump for winning a game, but not much one, nor do you fall down. So some teams, you get stuck in that middle, like 15 to 20, where Penn State and Notre Dame, and now Minnesota's bumped up to 20. It's hard to get past that. When everybody else in the conference is rated right around where you're at.
And there's never been a conference like this out in college hockey. What they do with their computers, do you think they're going to have to alter their formula?
No, I actually think it's a great system, and it really does. It gets you down so close. I think last year the biggest controversy we had was Minnesota, missing out by, was it .004 or something like that, and Duluth got in by that much. So I don't think it misses much. I think it does a really good job, and we'll continue, I'm sure, to tweak it, but I don't think we have to throw everything out. And it's just, you're going to go through cycles where it helps you to be in a conference, and you go through cycles where, and I think more often than not, it will help in the Big Ten. But like I said, we had all that parity. Everybody just kind of stuck where they were, and we didn't have 3 or 4 teams, bump up, whereas last year we did.
Dan, do you think there's anything you can do to get the KHL line a little more space and get away from some of the coverages?
There are some things you can do. I think a little bit is on them, and when they play forceful, and when they understand that there's not going to be a lot of room between the blue lines, and just know that they're going to have to go in and grind it out. That doesn't necessarily hurt their game. I think it helps their game. They are outstanding forecheckers, and they get way more offensive zone play and forechecking than they do off of the rush. I know we remember their goals off the rush, but a lot of it comes from the other way. And so I think, for them, it's understanding and being consistent with that, and taking what the game gives you. And when you try and go, I always talk about it, if you got to work from the inside out in hockey. You can't go from the outside in. It just doesn't work. And when they do that, they're really, really effective. And Saturday night they were. Friday they were, like the rest of us, they were average and stuck on the perimeter a little bit. But you know what? They're going to have to fight their way through, and they have for 2 years. And they've got to be what they are, and they've got to lead us, and they'll do that. But yeah, there's some things you can do. We can change back a little bit quicker. There's a few things that you can do with centers that throw some things off that we might do this weekend. But bottom line is they get the last change, and they're going to have to fight through it. They've done it, and I've seen them do it.
And how would you assess the play right now of your special teams, power play especially?
I think it's been, power play is up to, I don't know if we're 10th nationally or something like that. We're doing pretty well there, and I've been happy with it. And even our second unit has given us some quality time. Penalty kill, I think, other than a little slip up the one night against Penn State, I'd say the last 4 or 5 series we've been really good. I think we've had 4 or 5 zeros up on the board during that time, which is good. And a big part of that is that our goalies have been tough on the penalty kill, and we need them to continue to be. But I'd say in a pretty good spot. But if there's one if I had to pick one that had to be good, it'd be penalty kill. Correlation to success in penalty kill in playoffs in the NHL and international and college is pretty high.
Anything else?
Just nothing for Eddie.
Neil's got the mic.
I'm wondering the significance of winning a series in the Big Ten tournament for you and the program. What that would mean if you could get that done.
Yeah, well, that's the next step. We're going through some phases here, and learning how to win and learning how to extend the season. It'd be huge, and success is. I'm a big believer that a good way to learn how to have success is going through it, having success. So, it'd be great for our guys, and not just one round. We want to keep playing as long as we can. I told the coaches today, I have my folders for practices for the whole year, and we opened up a March one. Today was our first, practice in March as opposed to a pregame skate. And I said, I know we have a good program when I open up an April folder. So that's what we're looking for. But hey, everything's a mile marker, and until we pass the next one, we can't look 10 miles down the road. But yeah, the next mile marker we can pass right now is winning a series in the Big Ten. But the hell, may as well do it this year.
I guess resolve is my key word today, because I just asked Tom about this, but in playoff hockey, like in the NHL, I guess, how much does resolve count, and where do you see your teams resolve in that regard? Because that's what it's going to take to win this series, isn't it?
Well, it is, and even just to keep us in the series, I think, and you can say that a lot of different ways. Whether that's belief in what you're doing, or resolve, or we've been playing playoff hockey in my mind for since really right after the Great Lakes, and I think that's good training that we've gone through. Like Graham was saying, you have a little bit of success. How important is that? Well, going through this whole process has been real important in that. And one thing we talk to our guys about is just trust your training. And everybody says, oh, you rise to the occasion, and we kind of talk about that as being a false thing. You fall to the level of your training, and our guys have worked really, really hard, and that's where that confidence comes in. Because when push comes to shove, whether it's that resolve or confidence, that's where you're going to end up playing. That's when you're going to make that play, or you're going to make that mistake. And you know what? I think our guys they put a lot of hours in. That doesn't guarantee anything, but I think the resolve will be there. I think the battle will be there, and the camaraderie and the will of the Spartans will be there this weekend.